Hey guys, Foxdrop here. So recently I've been playing a lot on the PBE to get used to the pre-season 11 changes with the jungle and specifically with the new items. And there's been a fair few amount of changes honestly, and I can tell how that would be a little bit daunting for some of you guys moving on from season 10 to season 11 and trying to know what's going on. So just to make that transition a little bit easier, I want to share with you what I think are some of the strongest items right now that you can get your hands on in the preseason. I've been streaming a lot, twitch.tv/Foxdrop, pretty much every single day, just testing out different items and stuff like that. I'll put a link to my stream in the description if you want to follow it. But without further ado, let's get cracking. So the first item that I think is really strong actually is something called the Parallax Claw. Parallax Claw is a new assassin item. It gives you ability haste, which is the new CDR, attack damage, and also a bunch of lethality. It also builds out of 5 longswords. I'm not even joking, genuinely, it's 5 longswords. 2 for the Corefield's Warhammer, 2 for the Serrated Dirk, and another one on top of it as well, because why not? But what makes this item so bonkers isn't just the stats itself, it's more about the active, which is called Sandswipe. What this active does is give you the ability to slide through an enemy champion, kind of similar to how Warwick Q works, or maybe like Kiana E, something like that. Now that in itself is really crazy, but you also do a bunch of damage to the target that you slide through, and you also increase subsequent damage by 15% for 3 seconds. From a damage perspective alone, in my experience, this is pretty bloody bonkers, but the fact you can just slide through people, it's essentially another gap closer, which has some really good synergies with specific champions. Pike, for example, if you press E and then you slide through someone, your E will follow you and stun the target, and it just allows you to engage from really far away. Lee Sin, oh my goodness, you can insect people without having to ward hop. You just use this item and end up on the other side of them and then kick them into Oblivion. Definitely an item you're going to want to keep your eyes open for. Moving on now to my next item, I want to give a quick cheeky shout out to the newly reworked Oblivion Orb. Now you guys are used to Oblivion Orb as a name, you know, it was an item that gave you health and an AP and some magic pen which built into Morello's. And whereas Morello's itself hasn't really changed going into season 11, the Oblivion Orb absolutely has. It's now basically a baby Morello's. It's the Grievous Wounds mage item. And I'm putting this item on this list because mages haven't had access to Grievous Wounds apart from Morello's, which is a really expensive item. Maybe your Ignite if you're running that as well. But Oblivion Orb is genuinely an 800 gold item, which gives you 30 AP and Grievous Wounds. So now it's not just up to the AD carry or maybe the physical damage support to get that Executioner's Calling. You now have the AP version of the Executioner's Calling. So you can get Grievous Wounds from much earlier on, and you can just sink some gold into this. So you don't necessarily have to upgrade it into the Morello's. Like, you can just buy this item and sit on it for a while and just have it complementing your build without having to really dedicate a huge amount of gold and time into getting Grievous Wounds. I think this is going to be an absolute game changer for League of Legends. Next time I want to talk about is something called Eclipse. This is totally new to League, you won't have seen anything quite like this. If you're playing on the PBE as these items first came out, my goodness, Eclipse was, oof. Mate, this thing got absolutely nerfed into the ground. You could stack this when it first came out. It was an absolute terror. Even in its current neutered form, it's still really bloody strong. Eclipse is an assassin item. It gives you AD, it gives you lethality, and it gives you something called Omnivamp, which is like Lifesteal or Spellvamp, but for everything. All sources of damage it's going to heal you for. But what makes Eclipse really shine is its unique ability called Ever Rising Moon. The really short version of this passive is when you're fighting someone now, you can do a bunch of their health as damage, you're going to be getting loads of move speed, and you're going to be getting a Sterak shield as well. This item gives assassins the choice to be a bit more bruiser focused or anti-tank, which obviously is not an assassin's forte. They're really good at killing squishies, but this allows them to still be good at killing those tankier targets, and for me I just think that's kind of crazy. Especially since it only has a 6-second cooldown if you're a melee champion, so if you are in more of an extended fight, which you will be against tankier targets, you'll probably get this popping off at least more than once. On top of that, the mythic passive of this item, which is when you buy a mythic item, all other legendary items that you buy will give you some extra stats. The extra stats on Eclipse is Armor Pen, which again, very anti-tank. I personally think it's going to be really crazy to see assassins not get fully cucked by tanks anymore and actually have answers to bring them down. Another item I think is absolutely nutty is something called the Immortal Shield Bow. This item gives you AD attack speed, crit chance, and lifesteal, and it has a lifeline passive as well, which is the Parallax Shield. Now you might think that sounds a little bit weird, it's a lot of different stats all chucked in there. What champions are really going to be able to use all of them? Obviously you've got Yasuo and Yone who are going to absolutely love this item, but an even crazier thing about this item is that it's not limited to melee champions like Parallax always has been. If you're a ranged champion, you can still buy this. So if you're playing an AD carry and you know you're going to have a tough time with people jumping on you, diving on you and whatever, you actually have an option now to itemize into something which will protect you but still keep you going as like a marksman, you know, with attack speed and crit and stuff. Another item I want to mention today is called Cosmic Drive. This is a legendary item for mages. Cosmic Drive gives you 70 AP, 30 ability haste, 200 health, and its unique passive is called Spell Dance. Dealing damage with abilities grants bonus move speed for 4 seconds. The main reason why I think this item is really good is because of its accessibility. It's a legendary item, which means you're going to be able to buy it in essentially any mage build that you want it in. And also the stats are really universal. AP, CDR, health. Literally every champion can benefit from that. I personally found pretty good use on Brand using this item because when you've got a dot running on someone, it's constantly proccing this spell dance and you're moving around really fast, which is great for a champion that is quite vulnerable because he doesn't have any mobility. We're slightly moving on to some honorable mentions now, and I want to talk about Zonis and Banshees together as a pair. You guys know what Zonis does, you know what Banshees does. Not too much has changed in Season 11. They're still Zonis, they're still Banshees. The big difference is they're now around 500 gold cheaper than they were in Season 10. That might not sound like a huge amount of gold, but for an item that gives you utility, like it's not really part of your core build, considering you can get it for so cheap and just chuck it on the side there, it means you're spending less gold on things that aren't part of your big oomph, your big punch, your big BAM! Does that make any sense? Am I just crazy? It's probably the second one, but either way, they are cheaper now and I think that's really cool. There's also a mage mythic item called Everfrosts, which I think is interesting and might be really cool, but I'm putting it at the end of this video because I'm not 100% sure just yet. It's really nothing crazy to write home about as far as the stats go. It gives you AP, CDR, health, mana. Where it really shines is this active called Glaciate. It's a little bit like how GLP works in Season 10, you know, the Super Soaker that fires out ice beams. This one's more shaped like a Sejuani W. It fires out in a cone in front of you, dealing damage. It's not quite as widespread as GLP is. However, if you're standing in the middle of the cone, you'll be rooted for 1.5 seconds. It's a pretty cool utility active, but for me what makes it really crazy is it has a 20-second cooldown. That's not very high at all. You're definitely going to be able to use this more than once in team fights. But anyway guys, that's all I want to say for this video. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed it. Get out there on the Rift and start abusing some overpowered items. They're pretty bloody bonkers, trust me, but that's what preseason's for, so whatever. Like I said, I've been streaming a lot, twitch.tv/Foxdrop. Go give me a cheeky follow there. There's a link to it in the description. Thanks so much for watching. Have a fantastic day, and I'll see you in my next video.